On this Tuesday night, did Ottawa screw up?
I think we took a step too far.
Expelled from Saudi Arabia, this former Canadian ambassador is speaking out for the first time about the diplomatic dispute and the mistakes he thinks Canada made. A CBC News exclusive.
1 week till legalization, police forces grapple with a key question. When can off-duty officers use cannabis? Do some rules go too far?
And in depth.
Those are the remnants of villages that have been burned.
A year since Rohingya Muslims fled Myanmar, signs of atrocities Canada calls a genocide. We're the only Canadian journalists inside Myanmar. This is The National.
For months, a diplomatic rift has been festering between Canada and Saudi Arabia, and it all started with the tweet. Consider the fallout. Saudi Arabia suspended new trade with Canada. It recalled thousands of Saudi students studying here, and it kicked out Canada's ambassador. That man is Dennis Horak. He is now retired, and he's talking exclusively to The National. He's got a lot to say, starting with the story of that tweet.
We were standing around, there was about 20, 25 people here.
Returning to the scene of the crime, Dennis Horak was here in his brother's Toronto backyard on vacation when he learned this summer the Saudis had expelled him as ambassador. Did you think that was a joke?
Well, at first we thought, because it was on Twitter. It's not the way these things are normally done.
Twitter. This is where the problems began. It was August when Ottawa issued this tweet urging the immediate release of women's rights activists. As was routine, it was translated into Arabic and sent out from the Canadian embassy in Riyadh. The Saudis were furious.
Twitter diplomacy.
The tweet wasn't Horak's idea. No one asked his opinion, and he says he wouldn't have advised it.
To sort of drop a tweet, as we did, in a vacuum with no bilateral relationship really to speak of. It's not effective, and it has repercussions.
Saudi Arabia canceled flights to Canada, ordered Saudi investment pulled, declared Saudi students would have to leave, and recalled its own ambassador. Did Ottawa screw up?
We took a step too far. I think the immediate release line seems to be what has really agitated them. Whether we can come back from that or not, I don't know.
Why would this offend the Saudis so much?
They were upset that it was in Arabic. They felt that we were targeting their audience, their public. They feel that perhaps Saudi Arabia is being too compliant with Western demands. This would give them ammunition to say, see, look, we're being pushed around by the West.
A few months on, the Saudis still talk indignantly about Canada. Have a listen to the foreign minister last week in New York.
You can talk to us about human rights anytime you want. We'd be happy to have that conversation like we do with all of our allies. But lecturing us? No way. Not going to happen.
He's right. I mean, the Americans issue, the State Department issues a human rights report every year. The British Parliament does. But again, they both have very strong relationships with Saudi Arabia, and so it can survive some of those public dressing downs in ways that we were more vulnerable to.
Rather than back down, Canada has owned its tweet, its frost with Saudi Arabia. While no other nations have come to this country's defense, human rights groups have, and Horak finds that telling.
It seems to me that the applause that the government has gotten from Amnesty International and other organizations is something that's welcomed by the government, and perhaps rightly so, and perhaps that's what's driving it.
Is that worth as much as a relationship with Saudi Arabia? Is that a good trade-off?
In my view, no.
What was your conversation like with the minister after this happened?
I haven't spoken to her.
Did she not take the call, or did you not make the call?
I just didn't speak to her. I spoke with her staff, and I was there a couple of days after as we were trying to assess the impact. But no, I didn't speak personally to the minister or the prime minister.
If he did have that conversation, he might say his criticism isn't political, because he was also thrown out of his post as Canada's ambassador to Iran after Stephen Harper's Conservative government cut ties with the nation.
When I was in Iran and in Saudi, that engagement, whether we like them or not, whether we like what they're doing or not, is really not the issue. If you want these changes to happen, if you want to have your voice heard, you have to engage them.
Toronto is home now for Horak and his wife. Writing, analysis may be his destiny. He doesn't expect to be advising anyone about Saudi Arabia.
Anybody who's going to want to do business in Saudi Arabia is not going to be putting me on a board or putting me as an advisor. I mean, the business side would have been nice, but I'm going to be the skunk at that party.
Persona non grata is the official term.
That's
Skunk
not
at the
gonna happen
party,
at this point.
that'll do though.
So, Adrian, let's look at a couple of issues kind of brought up by this whole story. First of all, what about the women's rights activists who were mentioned in that tweet?
Well, he knows them well. Dennis Horak says he doesn't think the tweet hurt them. They're still in jail, though. It's hard to say what's happening, though, and that's sort of his point. Because Canada really doesn't have eyes on the situation right now, it's really difficult to assess what's going on with them, and that's what you lose when you do this.
And of course, a big story looming over this, the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And when you did this interview, the news hadn't yet broken that some people believe that he may be dead.
That's right. There is a bit of an update about him, though, right now. The UN High Commission for Human Rights has weighed in on the mystery of Khashoggi.
We call for cooperation between Turkey and Saudi Arabia to conduct a prompt, impartial and independent investigation into the circumstances of Mr. Khashoggi's disappearance, and to make the findings public.
So Jamal Khashoggi entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul last Tuesday, has not been seen since. Today, Turkey's state-run television released an image that apparently shows Khashoggi going into the consulate, and there are reports that Turkish staff at the consulate were suddenly given the day off. The Saudis maintain Khashoggi left the building shortly after. Turkey's foreign ministry says a search will be conducted there.
Here's a look at what else we're working on tonight on The National. Taylor Swift asked people to sign up, and voter registration spiked ahead of the midterm elections. Why she's choosing now to get political.
And as Hurricane Michael gets closer and grows stronger, evacuations are underway along the Gulf of Mexico. Why this monster storm is expected to be so bad.
And a Canadian exclusive, Nala Ayed takes us inside Myanmar for a rare glimpse at what is left of the Rohingya villages after the massacre. Here's a preview.
Immediately striking as we drive north into the killing zone, the haunting hints of the razed Rohingya Muslim villages that remain.
Look at that right there. What looked like coconut trees that have had their tops taken off. Oh, here's a few more here. And what we've been told is that those are the remnants of villages that had been burned. Wow, look at that. Wow, actually there's more.
As we speed by one village, Chenkali, we could only identify with the help of a map phone app. Human Rights Watch says 700 buildings were burned down here in a systemic campaign. There's nothing left to come back to.
Nala's full report a little later on The National.
Canada is just 8 days away now from legal recreational pot. Today we learned how that will affect some of this country's police officers. Briar Stewart looks at how much weed is considered too much for someone who wears a badge.
In just over a week, legal recreational pot will mean changes for police on the job. But departments are also having to consider what their officers should be allowed to do on their own time.
We trust our employees, and we looked at the policies surrounding prescription use, alcohol use, and we really don't have an issue here.
The Vancouver Police Department is taking the same approach to recreational cannabis as it does to alcohol. Officers won't be told what they can and can't do while they're not at work, but they're required to show up fit for duty. Other police forces across the country, though, are introducing more restrictive policies. The RCMP is looking at banning officers from using recreational cannabis for 28 days before a shift. Today, Toronto Police announced it's their policy.
We've made the decision based on the role that our officers play in protecting community safety. And right now, the science tells us that you can be impaired and or have the effects of cannabis up to 28 days of use.
The Calgary Police Department goes even further. If officers are trained to use firearms and can be called in for active duty, they can't use ever. Their union expects challenges to the policy.
I've even had members approach me that have said, I'm not even planning on using, but I don't think it's fair for my employer to tell me what I'm going to do on my own time.
It doesn't help that there are no common guidelines for all forces.
And that's what they mean by fitness for duty.
This criminologist believes having inconsistent policies can lead to confusion.
It raises questions about the reliability of some of these limitations, because the circumstances of policing, the experiences of the environment of policing are not that different from one city to another.
But as it stands, the rules for police officers will differ. Just because recreational pot will be legal for Canadian adults, it doesn't mean that everyone will be allowed to partake. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
As Briar just mentioned there, each police force is going at it their own way. So how are they coming to those conclusions? Jason Bussa researches the effects of cannabis at McMaster University, and he is in Toronto tonight. Good to see you, Jason. So the Toronto police say its officers can't use cannabis for 28 days before reporting for duty. There are some other police forces toying with that number as well. Where do you think that number may have come from?
Well, it's difficult to know where that number comes from, but there must be some kind of test or assay that they're using to detect the presence of cannabis in an officer's system. The THC is broken down into metabolites, which can be detected in urine, for example. And because THC is stored in fat cells, it can slowly leach out into the system long after the effects of the high have passed, and can be detected, depending on the test you use, for days and even up to weeks. So they may be looking at some type of test that's focusing more on the metabolites or the breakdown products of cannabis as opposed to the actual effects it might be having on an officer.
Okay, so it might not be that you're high for 28 days, because that doesn't sound right. But how long does THC typically stay in a person's body, and does it leave them impaired for a long period of time?
Well, depending on how they take it in, whether they smoke it, inhale it, or ingest it, the potency of the product, how much THC it has in it, which is the psychoactive component, right, the individual's metabolism, these things will all play a part in how long it stays in your system. But in terms of the actual high that you feel, that euphoria, if you inhale or smoke cannabis, that lasts anywhere from 1 to 3 hours on average. If you ingest the product through an edible, it might be 4 to 6 hours, depending on how much you have in your stomach when you take in the product. But you're quite right. The idea that you would remain impaired for a period of 28 days or even a matter of days is simply untenable.
Okay, I only have about 30 seconds, but how worried are you at this stage about people coming into work with cannabis still in their system? And do you think that what we're seeing from police is really more about liability?
I suspect that it is more the latter. I think that there's been a lot of products out there, a lot of substances that people can take in, whether it's a glass of beer, a glass of wine, that have the potential to impair you. And certainly I think most officers handle that responsibility. They do what they do on their time off. It doesn't affect what they do at work. So I'm not overly concerned that they might have a metabolite in their system. What I would be concerned about is they might come in impaired. Certainly a 28-day time span seems excessive for that.
Okay, Jason Bussa, thank you very much for your time tonight. I appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
It's not just police forces grappling with this issue. Just today, WestJet informed its workforce that anyone in safety-sensitive positions will be banned from marijuana use, even when they're not at work. Air Canada had announced a similar policy. How about firefighters? Well, Toronto Fire says it's not changing its policies, that employees are strictly prohibited from showing up to work impaired. Vancouver adds that you can't take any impairing substance 4 hours before a shift. And some are still trying to come up with a policy, like the Canada Border Services Agency, Correctional Service of Canada, and NAV Canada, which runs Canada's air navigation system.
To New Brunswick now, where choosing to live near Canada's biggest oil refinery likely comes with an understanding of the potential risk. Still, after yesterday's explosion sent flames shooting into the air and people running for their lives, you can imagine some of the thousands who live nearby may be on edge. Kayla Hounsell spoke with residents in St. John.
As crews continue to spray water in an effort to prevent flare-ups, the refinery parking lot sits largely empty. Yesterday, flames shot into the air after an explosion that rocked the city.
If you stood on the steps, you could see the flames as well through the trees.
Gordon Dalzell lives half a kilometer away. He's an environmental activist and for years sat on Irving Oil's Community Liaison Committee.
If I had to make the decision now, would we move here? I don't think so.
Dalzell moved to the neighborhood in 1979. The refinery was here then too, but it has since expanded significantly. There's a similar situation in Regina. where the Co-op refinery complex is also situated near a residential neighborhood.
A lot of attention has been on the transport of oil by rail, marine transport, and pipeline, of course. But refinery safety, because the incidents are relatively infrequent, doesn't get a lot of attention.
But Sean Tucker, who researches refinery safety, says explosions at Canadian refineries are happening more often, partly due to aging infrastructure.
That's problematic because over time it can lead to holes in the piping and gases or liquids escaping. And if there's a ignition source, then you have the potential for a catastrophic explosion.
Tucker also says refineries need to communicate openly with communities. Dalzell says so do emergency management officials.
And people were getting anxious and concerned, and the MO have to significantly improve their communication strategies.
He and many others say the information flow was too slow.
Citizens have spoken loudly that there were gaps in their view on communication, and I agree, and we'll be reviewing it.
As for Gordon Dalzell, he says he's not moving, no matter the risk. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, St. John.
Well, turning to the U.S. now, we're tracking a major storm that is about to make landfall. Hurricane Michael developed quickly, and it is gaining strength. It's spinning over the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, picking up steam, and is expected to slam into the Florida Panhandle, potentially as a Category 4 tomorrow. Renee Filipponi is tracking the storm for us this evening. And Renee, tell us what makes Michael so dangerous.
Well, Ian, a storm of this size in this part of Florida is pretty rare. Only 3 major hurricanes have hit the Panhandle since 1950, the last one being Dennis back in 2005, when 88 people died. So officials are understandably concerned and are urging people to listen to warnings, to leave or get prepared.
Pineapple Willie's was closed today, but employees were hard at work.
We're just trying to get all the windows and stuff boarded up, get the shutters on, turn all the gas and stuff off.
The restaurant sits on the beach, right in the path of Hurricane Michael.
This one kind of come up out of nowhere. No one really talked about it till yesterday, it seemed like, So I think people are taking it seriously.
Michael could bring winds up to 177 kilometers an hour, dumping up to 30 centimeters of rain, and cause a storm surge of nearly 4 meters.
That means the water will come miles inshore and could easily be over the roofs of houses. Think about that.
Officials are expecting a lot of damage and widespread power outages. At least 120,000 people along the Panhandle have been told to leave, and millions more in Florida and neighboring states are on alert.
This isn't about politics. I love my family. I love all the families in the state, so I'm going to do whatever I can to get people safe.
Those who aren't leaving are preparing to wait out the storm.
We opened at 6. By 6:15, we sold out of every generator we had.
At gas pumps and grocery stores, the lineups were too long for some.
The pumps are covered with bags. Walmart's empty with water, so it's easier to stay.
With Michael closing in, time is running out, not just to prepare, but to get out.
And Renee, I'm sure a lot of people wondering about how this compares to the other major hurricane of the year, Florence.
Well, Florence, despite all the forecasts, actually ended up weakening before it hit the coast, and that doesn't appear to be the case with Michael. Officials are expecting the damage, especially to power grids, to be even worse. And keep in mind, Ian, when this storm moves north, it will hit North Carolina, which is still dealing with the cleanup from Florence.
Okay, Renee, thank you.
You're welcome.
We're watching several other developing stories on the National tonight, starting in Washington with the speculation over who will replace Nikki Haley at the UN.
It was a blessing to go into the UN with body armor every day and defend America. And I'll always do that. I'll never truly step aside from fighting for our country. But I will tell you that I think it's time.
Haley announced today she will leave the post as U.S. ambassador by the end of the year. She says she has no plans to run for office in 2020 and will campaign for Trump. Trump says he already has a short list of possible contenders to replace her, including former Deputy National Security Advisor Dina Powell. An emergency crews in BC are working on a gas line explosion northwest of Prince George tonight. The blaze started burning around Shelley, sending flames high into the air. A nearby First Nation has been evacuated.
Ahead tonight on The National, we are the only Canadian journalists on the ground in Myanmar, the site of what some say was a genocide. Nala Ayed takes an in-depth look at what has and has not changed a year later.
And a little later, the story of two complete strangers, two separate DNA tests, and one life-changing discovery.
First, though, Taylor Swift takes a political stand. Could the power of a pop star sway the midterm elections?
Let's say that I like Taylor's music about 25% less now, okay?
Is it cool that I said all that? Is it chill that you're in my head? 'Cause I know that it's delicate.
Taylor Swift is getting political for the first time. She posted on Instagram that she'd be voting for the Democratic candidate in Tennessee and reminded her fans to register to vote. Unlike here in Canada, where you can just walk in and register on voting day, the registration deadline for Tennessee and nearly a dozen other states was today. Swift's message seems to have given registration a huge bump, but as Stephen D'Souza explains, we'll have to see if that star power is enough to get them to the polls.
Look what you made me do.
Until this weekend, Taylor Swift had used her stage to talk about breakups and boyfriends. But when she put out a political call to tens of millions of her fans, it signaled a shift into a new arena.
To see such a bold and lengthy statement was sort of a hallelujah moment as a Taylor Swift fan.
It was a moment some Republicans, including the president, used to attack the pop star as another out-of-touch elite.
Let's say that I like Taylor's music about 25% less now, okay?
Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee said it won't matter unless we allow 13-year-old girls to vote. But with a career in both country and pop music spanning more than a decade, and with 3 times more followers than Donald Trump on Twitter and Instagram, experts say critics dismiss her audience at their peril.
If somebody was 8 years old 10 years ago listening to Taylor Swift, they're 18 now. This is their first chance to vote in an election.
Since her post on Sunday, Vote.org, a nonpartisan group promoting voter turnout, says 230,000 people have registered. More than 60% of them are under the age of 30. Whether that will translate to votes is hard to say. Only about 23% of young voters turned up for the last midterm election. And while Swift's nemesis Kanye West is telling whomever will listen that he supports Trump and plans to visit the White House later this week, this marketing expert says what the pop star did is more valuable because, unlike Kanye, she's kept silent until now.
The fact that she hasn't been known to do it before is probably the most critical because it's a surprise.
The race Swift highlighted in Tennessee is one of the closest in the country. So analysts will be watching to see if the Democrat there gets a bump and if Taylor Swift really is in tune with voters. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
Up next on The National, an exclusive look inside Myanmar a year after Rohingya Muslims were forced to flee.
You prefer to stay there than to come here?
We afraid our life.
One year ago, the CBC's Nala Ayed and her team were in Bangladesh as the Rohingya crisis was unfolding. Hundreds of thousands of refugees fleeing violence in Myanmar, what the UN now calls ethnic cleansing, and Canadian lawmakers say was a genocide. Now, 1 year later, CBC News has gained rare access inside Myanmar itself. We are the only Canadian news organization to travel to Rakhine State as part of a government-organized media tour. It was a whirlwind trip, tightly controlled, but there was no mistaking what the crew found, that something unspeakable had transpired. Here's Nala on what she saw then and now.
We last left them perched at what seemed the edge of the world. Unlucky to be stuck in no man's land on the Bangladesh side of the border with Myanmar. Stunned by the violence and the scale of it. A man speaking for them, Dil Mohammed, even afraid to show his face.
I don't want to stay here
I want to go back as soon as possible. I appeal the world body to more and more pressure to stop genocide on our Rohingyas.
A year later, we are in Myanmar, and genocide is a word far more readily used abroad to describe what happened to Rohingya Muslims here. Myanmar, rejecting the charge and refusing outside investigators, tells an alternative version of the story.
We have to go to the
Partly through controlled access to Rakhine State, where the atrocities unfolded. We too were invited to visit, escorted by Ministry of Information officials.
Can we spend just a little bit more time in Indin then?
We asked to see specific villages. They insisted the agenda was set. And don't ask the drivers to stop, they said. It is a long way to northern Rakhine. And we are late. A year and hundreds of thousands of refugees late. But by seeing even glimpses, we might still gain insight.
It's horrific weather today. Lightning, thunderstorms, and a lot of rain. It would have been something like this almost exactly a year ago when thousands of people were trying to get from Myanmar to Bangladesh on waters not far from here. It's no wonder so many of them died at
sea. Immediately striking as we drive north into the killing zone, the haunting hints of the razed Rohingya Muslim villages that remain.
Look at that right there. What looked like coconut trees that have had their tops taken off. Oh, here's a few more here. And what we've been told is that those are the remnants of villages that had been burned. Wow, look at that. Wow, actually there's more.
As we speed by one village, Chenkali, we could only identify with the help of a map phone app. Human Rights Watch says 700 buildings were burned down here in a systemic campaign. There's nothing left to come back to. Also striking, a lot of building is going on. As the acknowledged site of a massacre, the village of Indin seemed a peculiar place for a first stop. Burned are mostly the Muslim sections, the rest left intact. Not a single Rohingya Muslim resident is left. And they're probably not coming back, says the village administrator. He says the new homes are for new Rakhine and Hindu residents. The revelation of the massacre and mass grave here led to prison sentences for 7 Burmese soldiers involved, but also for the Reuters journalists who investigated it.
There is nothing left of any kind of evidence that anything untoward happened here. And furthermore, people here essentially saying they don't know of such a massacre.
An older couple finally let us in. Takin Tenji had a tea shop where the Muslim kids also hung out. She says they warned her about an impending attack. She uses a derogatory name for Muslims. Rakhine Buddhists killing Muslims is just 1 out of 100, she says. The difference between Rakhine and Muslim is that Rakhine Buddhists are kind and feel for others, she says. So many more questions. But it was time to go. A long ride down the road. The district of Mongdo, once overwhelmingly Rohingya Muslim, traders, laborers, rickshaw drivers, long without rights to citizenship or freedom of movement. Now, 500,000 of them simply gone. Local officials call them Bengali, and they tell us they're working and rebuilding to bring them back. They reject accusations of genocide or ethnic cleansing in their midst. For me, I don't believe it, says U Yih-tu, the Mongdo district deputy director.
I wonder who you blame for the burnings of these villages.
It was the terrorist group, he says, known here as ARSA, the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army. He later showed a video he says is proof. If there's a genocide going on, how come Muslims are still here, says this official. They also blame the group for preventing Rohingya from coming back. No one mentions the resistance in some parts here to such returns. We're introduced to Marmak Shahi and his family. He says he returned on foot from Bangladesh, and he echoes the local officials.
Why did you decide to tell your story? Why is it important?
My properties and house were burnt, he says. We're living like beggars. I was so angry, and it happened because of Arsa. That's why I'm talking to the media, so the world knows. The next day, after several hours on bumpy roads, we arrive at that border. Here, they say, is the proof of Myanmar's commitment to repatriating Rohingya, a reception center ready to welcome them. But there are none for us to meet. Only 171 people have returned since it opened in January. Nearly 1 million wait in Bangladesh, in what's become the world's largest refugee camp. Officials here again blame Arsa, and oddly, Bangladesh. In a new report, the UNHCR says the conditions are not yet in place for a safe, dignified return. At the so-called zero line, we have the chance to ask why. It's that same camp we visited a year ago, this time from the other side of the border. It's grown from about 1,000 to 5,000 people. Dil Mohammed is still here. He no longer hides his face, and he still wants to go home.
Still no situation too safe for us in Myanmar.
You prefer to stay there than to come here?
We afraid our life. Food is not important for us. Our main important is permanent and get permanent solution, sustainable solution about Rohingyas issue. It must do the ICC.
Crucial to that, he says, must be a trial at the International Criminal Court. And will they have something to come back to? Citizenship, the villages, free movement? Or has their expulsion been cemented on the ground?
Why do you think the government bring the media here to meet you guys?
I think you are not free, you are not independent. It is organized by our government of Myanmar.
It's time to go again.
Please take a seat. There we go.
It's a very long way to go to get to the other side of the fence 1 year later. And the irony of being told across that fence that on this tour, we are not free media. But we have seen glimpses of a troubled region fundamentally transformed. The palpable absence demands accountability.
And Nala joins us now from our bureau in London. We heard the UN Special Rapporteur for Myanmar saying today the country is unable and unwilling to investigate what happened in Rakhine State, that the international community has to step up. And how is the idea of an outside investigation being received in Myanmar?
Well, not very warmly, Ian. I had a chance to speak to Professor Aung Tan Tet, who is the head of a private public organization headed by Aung San Suu Kyi, which is tasked with helping Rakhine State get past this crisis. And he said Myanmar's own investigation is enough to satisfy their concerns.
We would not do it because of international pressure. We would do it because we think it's needed. So it will be on our terms, at our pace, and whatever we think suits the whole nation.
And so why is there so much skepticism about their ability to do this?
Well, it has a lot to do with past experience. Nicholas Bekelen, who's the East Asia director at Amnesty International, uses words like zero credibility in describing Myanmar's ability to investigate alone. Here's what he had to say.
Myanmar has a history of setting up these investigative commissions, and none of them have yielded any kind of results. We also have to remember that under Myanmar's constitution, the Tatmadaw, the military, is above the law and above this type of investigation by a civilian body. So from the get-go, it's basically impossible to investigate what has happened.
Ian, I should also add that the government is allowing access to Northern Rakhine State, but when they have, as you've seen, it's usually been quite controlled. And it's not for everybody. The UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Myanmar has never been allowed in the country at all. Ian.
All right, Nala, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Nala will continue her coverage tomorrow with a story that's been mostly overlooked over the past year, the wretched lives of Rohingya Muslims who remain in Myanmar.
Food security, their ability to work in the fields, their ability to farm, their ability to go fishing must be worse than it was before. I'm concerned that there's a hidden humanitarian crisis happening that we're unable to measure.
That is tomorrow on The National.
Still ahead tonight on The National, after digging into the history of one of the suspects in the Skripal poisoning, new details reveal a connection to Russian intelligence and to Vladimir Putin.
He was lying to everybody when he says that he is sure that these people have nothing to do with the Minister of Defense and that they didn't do anything criminal.
First, though, a preview of an interview you'll see, hey, that guy, tomorrow night on The National. Take a look. Jean Chrétien is 84 years old now. He's been out of politics for 15 years, but he doesn't miss a beat.
A lot of people laugh when you're abroad and you mention that name, Trump.
We met up to talk about a new book, a reflection of his life in politics, from NAFTA.
You know, they changed the name, that is his huge victory.
To the notwithstanding clause.
The notwithstanding clause is important because you have to declare that you're discriminating.
To the legalization of cannabis. Marijuana is about to be legalized.
I never tasted that. I don't know. I don't have a clue what it is.
My conversation with Jean Chrétien, that's tomorrow night on The National.
Oh my God. Oh my God. We need...
On The National tonight, the husband of a woman killed in a house explosion in Kitchener, Ontario, has now been charged with first-degree murder. 58-year-old Edra Han's body was found in the backyard after the blast in August. Her husband, Udo Han, is still in hospital with critical injuries. After a week of controversy, Quebec's incoming government looks open to a compromise on laws around religious symbols. Last week, the CAQ said it was prepared to fire or find new jobs for any teachers or public employees who would not remove religious symbols. That announcement was met by protest, and today the CAQ said it would consider a clause that would allow current public servants to continue wearing their religious symbols, but not new hires. The party also said today the crucifix, which was hung inside the National Assembly since 1936, would remain.
Investigative journalists in Britain and Russia say they have uncovered more evidence that Vladimir Putin lied about Russia's involvement in an assassination attempt last March. New details focus on one of the two men who allegedly poisoned Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia in Salisbury, England. The CBC's Chris Brown shows us how investigators uncovered his true identity.
That clumsy interview where the two alleged Russian assassins insisted they were just tourists keeps coming back to haunt them by providing investigative journalists such as Roman Dobrokotov with all kinds of leads. His Moscow-based publication, The Insider, poured through public databases and learned that suspected Skripal poisoner Alexander Petrov is really Alexander Mishkin, a medical doctor with Russia's military intelligence agency, the GRU.
I think that the most significant is that he is a hero of Russia, which is the highest honor he can get serving in military. And he was handled this star of hero of Russia personally by Vladimir Putin.
Dobrokotov's team spoke to people in Mishkin's remote hometown who claim his grandmother likes to show off a photo of Mishkin with Vladimir Putin.
That means that he was lying to everybody when he says that he is sure that these people have nothing to do with the Minister of Defense and that they didn't do anything like criminal.
British journalist Elliot Higgins, whose publication Bellingcat earlier outed Mishkin's partner as a GRU colonel, says since the nerve agent Novichok was used to try to kill the Skripals, maybe the GRU figured it was a good assignment for a doctor.
Seeing they're using a chemical agent, maybe they needed someone to apply an antidote if, they messed it up.
For a secretive agency, Russia's GRU has had some embarrassing public blunders of late. Agents' names, their passport numbers, and license plates of hundreds of employees have all been published by journalists. But in Russia, taking on the GRU and the Kremlin comes with a risk.
Are you afraid you could be arrested or worse?
Well, we think that this risk is possible. Actually, when I was visiting Britain 2 weeks ago, and when I was returning back, 100% of people who were talking with me told me that I shouldn't go back to Russia because it's too dangerous. But for now, it's okay.
Russian state TV has chosen to mostly ignore all the GRU embarrassments. Tonight, the talk show panelists laughed it all off, saying you can find all kinds of conspiracy theories on the internet. Chris Brown, CBC News, Moscow.
Straight ahead, a Canadian citizenship ceremony delivers our moment of the day with, let's be honest, a touch of vertigo.
Forget about all your nervousness and everything. It's so great up there. I can't even explain it. It's so great up there.
But first, in case you missed it,
you see those commercials where somebody thinks they're Italian and they turn out to be Scottish or whatever. So I thought, well, maybe we'll get a big surprise too.
that's Stacey Kennedy, and this is probably the kind of surprise she was expecting to find when she signed up for Ancestry DNA.
Through Ancestry, the DNA, I found out that I was only 16% Italian.
Instead, she got a lot more than she bargained for.
Hey!
That's her half-sister, Kim McFarlane. The pair only met recently and didn't know of each other's existence before that.
I was just stunned. My stomach dropped, shock.
I had a really hard time wrapping my head around, like, oh, yeah, I have a half-sister. So this was like mom and dad's favorite picture.
And there's more. They were actually born the same year, just 5 months apart.
I dropped a big bombshell. So this one was mom and dad's wedding photo.
McFarlane, who was adopted, has the same father as Kennedy, news that everyone seems to be taking pretty well.
It's bittersweet finding her now as opposed to, earlier.
For now, it's all about making up for 45 years of lost time.
It's been awesome.
Nice.
These folks are about to take their first step as brand new Canadian citizens, hopefully not backwards. To celebrate Citizenship Week, the Canadian government is taking the ceremonies to new heights for some strange reason. In Toronto, that meant the CN Tower Edge Walk for the swearing in of 6 people, and that's our moment of the day.
On behalf of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, welcome to your citizenship ceremony.
Honestly, I didn't want to leave that platform because it's unforgettable. You feel like a bird on top of the world. It's amazing.
I swear that I will be faithful.
I'm so truly honored to become, to finally call myself a Canadian.
Just to be a part of the Canadian society and to live in Canada, it feels really good.
I feel so lucky. I feel so blessed. It's honestly, this day will be always in my memory. October 9th, perfect.
Wow. Well, firstly, congratulations. But I'm imagining someone, because it's Citizenship Week, at home who's about to go through the ceremony and saying, Martha, we should read the fine print, because if that's what it's going to take, I'm not in.
No, and they're doing it in other high places, like the Montreal Olympic Stadium, some lookout spot in Vancouver. You probably know, Ian, but I just looking at that made me a little nauseous because I'm terrified of heights. So I would just have to say, sorry, I can't be a citizen.
So kudos to the PR person with the government.
Yes.
Imagine somebody said, make Citizenship Day or Week exciting. Yeah. They picked this iconic structure, this fantastic thing. We bought into it with the video. I say next year, North Shore Mountains in Vancouver. with Nickelback officiating. How's that for Canadian?
That'll happen.
That is the National for October 9th. Good night.
Good night.